A closer look at the speaking paper. Assessment in Paper 4. The speaking paper constitutes 20% of your total marks. There are 4 different areas that are assessed in the speaking exam. These areas are 1. Grammar and vocabulary. 2. Discourse management. 3. Pronunciation. 4. Interactive communication. Each area is given a mark out of a possible 5, where 3 is adequate, below 3 is not adequate, and 4 or 5 are considered an effective and competent level. Let's look at each of these areas separately. 1. Grammar and vocabulary. You are not expected to have perfect grammar at this level, and some mistakes don't prevent you achieving an adequate or even good mark. However, it is important that the grammar mistakes don't interfere with understanding. You can practice varying verb tenses and checking your use of prepositions. Vocabulary is an area that distinguishes a good student from an adequate one, because a good student will try to use a variety of vocabulary and not repeat the same words too often. It is difficult to improve your grammar just before an exam, but vocabulary can be learnt and enriched in an ongoing process. Keep notes of new words and practice using them in class discussion and in pair work. 2. Discourse management. This area is all about the organisation of language. Good discourse management can be seen in the structure of answers to the examiner's questions, especially in the long turn where each candidate has to speak continuously for 1 minute. There are 3 areas to think about here. Relevance. Make sure your answers are relevant to the question. Coherence. Obviously, it is important that the answers are easily understood. And the third area is that of extending the answers, not giving brief or abrupt replies. Speaking without interruption for a minute is more difficult than it seems, so you need to practice. Choose topics from your textbook and, using a stopwatch, try to talk about them for 1 minute without stopping. 3. Pronunciation. Pronunciation is not only the way individual words are pronounced, but also the stress and intonation and rhythm of sentences and answers. Good students will avoid a monotonous tone, which always gives a negative impression, and use stress to add interest and enthusiasm to their answers. The best way to improve pronunciation is through listening. Listening to others in your class, listening to your teacher, and listening to songs, films, or talks on the internet. 4. Interactive communication. A very important part of the exam concerns interaction between the students and the examiner, and also, in particular, interaction between the 2 students. Interaction means taking turns to speak, listening to the other candidate, and encouraging them to participate. The interaction seems most natural when a candidate shows genuine interest in what the other candidate is saying. Interaction is being assessed all through the exam, but becomes particularly important in parts 3 and 4. The interaction being looked for is being good about turns, allowing the other student time to answer without interrupting, and not dominating by giving answers that are too long. You need to show a real interest in what the other student is saying, and also encourage them to participate by bringing them in with appropriate questions like, "What do you think?"